And welcome back to another edition of the Change My Mind podcast.
I won't change my mind because I don't have to, because I'm an American.
Yes, you are, and I'm Wesley Sykes, and through the other side of the ether is the Fade Ratha to my beast Rabin. It's Mr. Nicholas J. Esquire, hearkening for hire.
I can't believe you just did that to yourself. That's rough.
I would probably be the one to more lash out irrationally of the group here. That was my thinking of it.
Got it. Okay, that's fair. Okay, but that guy got totally. I mean, geez, Dave Bautista. That's a tough look for you, man.
Yeah, Beast for Bond didn't. You don't really see. You see how crazy he is and how aggressive he is. He's kind of like like a middle inside linebacker type from like the 80s football 80 football movies. He's like a real crazy guy. But you don't really see him in action in Dune 1. You kind of do, but it's a lot of him yelling and everything,
Yeah, really got watered down.
He's
not
really
watered
big
down.
baby.
Played down just in general. But I mean, that just seems like where the character had to go, and then obviously he gets worked by Josh Brolin in this, which I love that. But we can get to that more later. I'm getting ahead of myself.
A little bit, but it's all good stuff here because this is a movie that I think we can both safely say we really enjoyed. And without further ado, this week we are reviewing the latest Denis Villeneuve movie, Dune Part 2.
Do you have a sounder?
Oh, that's not playing, huh?
Oh yeah, no, that's not playing. I thought like
it's just playing through my headphones. I didn't have it going. So that's too bad there. Anyway, just picture like desert Arabian cries.
Got it.
That sort of thing. That's what was playing right there. But Dune 2 starring Timothee Chalamet and Zendaya. But before we get to that, Nick, and we're making good time here. When was the last time you burnt the roof of your mouth?
I don't know if I can answer that, but what I can tell you is the food that causes me to burn the roof of my mouth the most.
Frozen pizza.
Just pizza in general.
Why
frozen? Is that why are you asking this question? Is it because of frozen pizza?
No. This was because I had a microwaved egg roll, Southwestern egg roll that was left over Sunday, like mid-afternoon, mid-morning, like 11, 12 o'clock or so. Folded up in a paper towel so it gets nice and warm, kind of gets the heat trapped into itself. Only put it in the microwave for 30 seconds. Take one bite out of it, squirts out the other end under my finger, burns my finger.
Nice.
And then the whole roof of my mouth is burnt right now. And it's like, that has to be up there. Burning the roof of your mouth has to be like one of the top 5 nagging minor injuries that just really bother you,
Yeah, the other 2 that come to mind are paper cut, which I don't want to jinx myself. I don't want to, but paper cut, and then
been on a good streak.
I'm and toe stubbing. That's the other one too.
Oh yeah. What would happen to me a lot is when I had a shittier bed frame that would kind of like, that would like, it's like a one size fits all bed frame, so you would get that like metal corner that kind of sticks out at the edge there, and that's just tearing up your shin every day.
So there's those 3. You throw in the burning the roof of your mouth, and then leg cramp too. You see, fun growing up, right? I couldn't give you a 5th one off the top of my head though, but there's 4 right there. There's your Mount Rushmore.
This probably falls within the umbrella of burning the roof of your mouth, but cutting the roof of your mouth. You mentioned like pizza or anything like that, kind of being a culprit, but like Captain Crunch, hard cereal, that would always cut up the roof of my mouth, and I couldn't do that. Just too bad because the captain's great.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I can't empathize as much, so I can't say I've had that happen maybe more than 2 times. But
I like to shovel food in my mouth, so that's probably what I run into. The more I can get into my mouth, the better it tastes.
I will say, like biting your cheek or your tongue, like that. That's my 5th one. That's in there as well. That one, of all the things, that's the one that probably still pops up on me with some level of frequency.
If I am to bump my head for whatever reason, I'm in a tight space, and maybe I'm doing some work around the house, or something falls on my head, like that's like instant anger. Like I want to hit someone. Like it could be no one's fault. Maybe my own fault. Maybe it's a complete accident or something. Something falls over, and if it hits the top of my head, like that's like I go psycho mode. I start seeing red. It's like the Bitcoin memes where you see people with like the laser eyes. Like that's me at that point.
That's from Bitcoin? That's what that's from?
Yeah.
I had no idea what the hell that was from. I didn't know it's a thing.
Yeah, it was like a crypto thing. Maybe not Bitcoin specifically, but
Gotcha.
yeah.
But basically, you're the Adrian Beltre of the DSG, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, don't touch my head. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, exactly.
There we go.
Or
Good to
Chris
know.
Paul. I think Chris Paul's got a thing with his head.
Does he?
I remember something. I think it was
Huh.
maybe Tim Duncan would like pat him on his head. Like the big men would do that, and he would get really bothered by it.
Huh. Interesting. I
think
didn't
it's
know
Chris
that one.
Paul. Yeah,
Yeah, could be. I just didn't know.
yeah.
Adrian Beltre is just like cartoonish about how mad he gets. It's so funny.
Absolutely.
It's like, how do you not want to do it to him?
No, you're asking for it at that point, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I think they did do that. At least when he was on the Red Sox, every time he hit a home run, they would like pat him on the head.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Poppy tried to go in for it a few times. God, he's a beast. The fact that he only played for the Red Sox for a short bit is ridiculous. But anyways,
it's a damn shame. It's a damn shame. But it's never a letdown or a shame. Just the comic book minute coming at you right now. Ooh.
A superb choice.
Big week for Marvel readers. Ultimate X-Men issue 1 is out. We also got Spectacular Spider-Man issue 1. And I was just, perusing the interwebs before the show. And the Ultimate Universe in Marvel is making this comeback right now. Ultimate Spider-Man sold like hotcakes. I think it's this week, actually. I think it's this week. They have their third printing of Ultimate Spider-Man issue 1. It's that desired. Joe's reading it. Loved the first issue. Loved the second one as well. The Ultimate X-Men is by Peach Momoko, and she's a huge deal. So I would think it sounds like this is going to sell out pretty quickly at that first issue.
Okay.
That first issue. I actually did get a chance to read Spectacular Spider-Men and enjoyed it. I don't read a ton of Spider-Man stuff, and this is Miles Morales. Peter Parker, buddy cop in it, and just trying to live like normal humans, and they just can't. So I had a good time with that. DC, we got The Batman First Night issue 1. This is actually current creators and turning back the clock, going to an original old Batman story and giving it a new, more modern look and modifying it a little bit for the times, but still it's set back in the past. AWA, we got Red Light issue 3. Mad Cave, we got the 5th issue, the penultimate issue of The Devil That Wears My Face. And we actually had the artist of this series on TLDR a little while back. And he's actually a relative of Uncle Buck, who some may remember from Hashtag Work and Barstool back in
Barstool, like original Barstool, yeah.
Yes. So, it was a fun time talking with him. And then on TLDR this week, we only have what's new right now. That may mean some other stuff is in the hopper, but nothing's in the can. So I don't want to jinx anything. Also, want to mention we got, I think we're inside of a week pretty much left on the campaign for the Kickstarter that I'm involved in. Scott Snyder's writing class. You guys may have heard Scott Snyder mentioned a time or two across the DSG. And for those who don't listen to any DSG shows besides ours, he is best known for being one of the best Batman writers of all time. We put together an anthology, and it looks like it's going to be a quarterly series, and that has already been fully funded. The first issue, Wes has gotten a look at it himself. If you want, the only way, as far as I know, the only way you're going to be able to get your hands on it is if you go and back the Kickstarter, and then we'll get that at some point later on down the line. I don't think there's going to be any other way. So if you guys want to check it out, I have the first story in this issue. If you have questions about it, you can always find me on Twitter at fry_guy1. But it's a successful campaign, and got a little bit left to it.
It's campaign season, so I'm happy that this campaign is ending on a high note here, and I can't wait. I'm excited. I got my hard copy purchase, so I'm waiting. I'm excited for that to get. As veteran newspaper guys here, I like the feel of it. I want to be able to turn the pages. So
yes,
very excited for once that hits the mailbox there. But very exciting stuff nonetheless.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it very much. Thank you. It's almost as exciting, not quite, but almost as exciting as our main topic today.
Yeah. Are you ready to go talk to him?
I am.
Yeah. Tommy, are you ready?
All right. Now let's go get him.
All right. Love the enthusiasm out of Tommy here. We are talking Dune Part 2, an exit survey. Nick, what's the synopsis here?
Real quick before I say that, I almost feel like would Dune Part 2, like with Joker, would
Mm,
that sound better to you, or does it sound worse when I said it? Dune Part 2.
does it sound worse when you say, or does it sound worse than what like Dune Part 2 is?
I'm when you first heard me say it, did your stomach kind of turn a little bit, or did you think, oh yeah, actually they could have done it that way and it would have been
You know,
cool?
I'm not sure if French is the right
Hmm.
dialect for you. You know,
Yeah, thank you.
I can't talk. I can't do any sort of accents or anything like that. So we might be in the same boat there, but you know, maybe give
Appreciate
us
it.
some effort,
Okay.
little more. Take a
I'm
couple
gonna
more hacks at the plate.
I'm working on my Portuguese, so I'm just gonna I'll take the
There
L
we
on this one.
go. Yeah.
But
Well,
this
they kind of have like a jumbled type of like diction too, don't they? Or is it a lisp? They kind of have a lisp.
no, that's more
Or is that Brazilian?
that's more Spanish. Brazilian's more nasal, and then European Portuguese is more like, I think guttural is the way that it's described.
It's like more from the throat, like
Yeah,
"jiao" and like
yeah.
stuff like that,
Wow.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Not that my Portuguese accent is perfect, but it's better than it was in high school. Anyways,
All right,
um,
I love it.
these quitting French as of now. As for the synopsis for Dune Part 2, Paul Atreides unites with Shani and the Fremen while seeking revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family.
Yes, this is directed by Denis Villeneuve, starring Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides, Zendaya as Chani, Rebecca Ferguson as Jessica, Javier Bardem as Stilgard, Josh Brolin, which I was surprised that he made. He was in this one here, playing Gurney Halleck, Austin Butler as the aforementioned Freyed Rotha, Florence Pugh as Princess Irulan, Dave Bautista as the aforementioned Beast Raban or Rabin, Christopher Walken as the Emperor, Leah Sadu as Lady Margot Fenring, Skarsgård as Baron Harkonnen, Charlotte Rampling as Reverend Mother Moyham, Suella Yakub as Shishaki. I don't even know what character that is, so I'm not sure why that's in there. Roger Yan as Lanville, Babs Alasan as
Mhm.
Jamis, Allison Halstead as Maker Keeper, and Gisu Murley as Reverend Mother
Yeah,
Romalo. God,
there
that
are.
was tough.
Yeah, we're gonna say a lot of these characters' names wrong. There are some tough ones in there. As
Don't even ask me to do like I got it in my title, but the Lisan Al Gib and the Moadib and like all that stuff, like that was I'm never gonna be able to pronounce those. So that
No,
was my best shot at it.
that's probably the toughest part of all this, is keeping that straight. At least with some of these characters, it's like, like we have the Atreides, we have Harkonnen, we have the Fremen. Like we know they're like the parties at least.
Hmm.
Outside of that, it does get a little complicated. But that's not on the movie. That's just on the book.
Yeah, and it was also like the Fremen term for Messiah was the Muad'Dib, something like that, and then
Uh,
the Fremen name for the desert mouse was something also like that. They're very similar, and that's all what they're referring to Paul as when he takes his name,
I
whether
thought
he's the Messiah or that's like part of the part of the name that he's given after he becomes a Fremen warrior.
I know the mouse thing with the Fremen War, and I know it began with an M. I thought the one that like the L name was
Hmm.
the
Yeah,
prophecy
but
behind it.
they also called him the Majid or something like that, and that's also the Messiah term.
Oh, jeez, I thought that was just the mouse thing. Okay. Anyways, trying to keep all. I know we
I
have the
know.
general concepts.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. We
and
got it. We got what's going on here. We did the research.
yeah, for sure. Box office and critic reception, obviously, it's killing it. Brought
Hmm.
in 178.5 million worldwide in its opening weekend, including 81.5 million domestic, and so it's just getting started. 9 an even 9 out of 10 on IMDb, 94/96 split on Rotten Tomatoes,
Mm.
4.7 out of 5 on Google reviews, and 95% of Google users like this movie.
Yeah, and this seems right because they didn't greenlight Dune Part 2 until after Dune 1 came out. So they wanted to see what the reception was and how it was received and everything. And then they greenlit Dune 2. And I feel like that's going to be the similar format for Dune, which I think it's called Messiah, the third one. That's at least the next line in the book series.
Mhm.
And this seems like with a 180 million worldwide debut, I gotta imagine this has some box office legs. People going
Oh
back
yeah.
third time or just going for the first time, through word of mouth. I got to think that number, gets them greenlit for the third movie now.
I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't. I remember seeing some, just looking on Twitter, and obviously everybody's talking about Dune right now. Everybody's been talking about Dune probably since Thursday, and I noticed there was some like somebody talking about like how, oh yeah, if Villeneuve can like put together the right script and everything, then we'll get moving on the next one. It's like, wait a second, what? Like,
Yeah,
I I understand the I understand like profits and everything matter and whatnot, but what do you mean? Like this shit's amazing. This is the first one was awesome, and this one's better.
yeah. I don't think there was even much time between the opening weekend release. That was a day and date COVID release on HBO Max in theaters, but I think it maybe lasted a week before they came out and said, "All right, we're getting Dune Part 2." And I don't imagine there will be much time before they announce it between the initial release date and whenever they announce it.
Yeah, it's just it's the fact that I just don't get how the fact that it's even a question like that it was at any point like after the first one. I get it after the first one. Okay, fine. I mean,
Hmm.
it's still I'm still kind of surprised, but whatever. Anyways, it's
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. They give money for Madam Web, and then they hold out stuff. They keep you up in the air with stuff like this. So
yeah, it's only for Sydney Sweeney to go and drag it on SNL.
yeah, but hey, that no, all news is good news, right? So at least they're talking about it. At least
Yeah,
it's still staying in the national conversation.
sure.
By the
Yeah,
way, her yabos were all over my Twitter feed. Just that Sunday morning after SNL, every photo and clip of her. Yeah, maybe that's giving away some of my algorithm a little bit there, but I was blown away.
yeah. People were excited about Sydney Sweeney being on SNL. Apparently.
She's got yeah. There's some talent there.
Oh, okay. I just look back at my everybody else. Look back at my Madam Web review. She was one of the. She was not good in that movie. She can make fun of that movie all she wants. She was not good in that movie. Like I'm not
No,
saying anybody
no,
was
Nick.
particularly.
She's very talented.
I'm not saying anybody was particularly good except for one character. But she was like, it was surprising how bad she was in it too. So
I don't know what
anyway,
you're talking about. She's very talented.
okay, got it. Do you want to get to our tweet like
What
review?
is the score and tweet length review?
Okay. So I give this a 97 out of 100. Nice and simple. It was an amazing experience. The story, the characters, the cinematography. What a fucking ride.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you. Short and sweet. 98 out of 100. An incredible movie going experience filled with a great story, performances, great cinematography. Denis Villeneuve adds to his stellar resume, and the young stars of this movie. It's interesting. Like this is going into my tweet thread now review, but
Hmm.
you got this like kind of old guard of established actors and actresses that Denis has worked with previously. Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, all of these guys who are kind of up there. And they've all kind of made their name for themselves already. But then you got this young cast who is all famous and like Chalamet, Austin Butler, Zendaya, Florence Pugh. But this feels like it's just gonna like this is a tentpole movie for all of them.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say.
So I think that's kind of like ushering in the next crop of like young Hollywood stars.
Hmm. Yeah, that is a fair way to put it.
All right, now we get down to the nitty gritty here on the exit survey.
Sure.
Nick, did you fuck the popcorn bucket?
Oh, wow. That
Be
was,
honest.
they didn't have it at my cinema, actually.
Oh, so it was sold out already. Yep.
I mean, either that or maybe they didn't. Is there a chance they didn't get it, Wes? Because I went on Friday night and I went like at 6:40, so I saw one of the relatively
Mm,
earlier showing. Just should have
okay.
been available, right?
Yeah, you think so? Maybe you just got to show like your bottle of personal KY lube or something like that to get it.
God.
So, but you didn't have popcorn though.
Oh, I had popcorn, but
Yeah.
they didn't have that they did not have that like container. I actually was looking for it. I was just because I was
Was
gonna
this
take a
at your
picture.
local Chunkies or was this more of at like a multiplex?
I did not go to Chunky's. It's Apple Cinemas in Merrimack, and it's like a chain in some capacity. I know there's another one.
I
So,
wonder if it's just like for AMC or Regal or something like that.
ooh, that's an interesting point. It might be. I'm
Hmm.
not sure, but yeah, that
This is disappointing. Now
did,
you're gonna
did
have to
you
go back and just buy a ticket and be like, just give me the popcorn and just get out of there.
did you get the popcorn bucket?
No, I did not. I let me know what you think about this as a movie going snack. Beef jerky.
Uh, it's an interesting choice. I don't know. I don't think I would do that. It's like you're asking to get, but at the same time, do, do you run into like do you get? I know it's Goo has like the issue of like having in the movies like having to go to the bathroom in the middle of it. You don't run into
Sometimes.
it. You do run into
Sometimes
this.
I do. Yeah, it
Okay.
depends, but this one I went to the bathroom beforehand and then had to go, but didn't have to go enough to where I had to get up and leave.
Wouldn't beef jerky help with that? Like not needing to go as much? Am I making that up?
Maybe. I mean, it's salty, so maybe that dries you out a little bit more. But
Yeah.
my thought process is like, I saw the movie 8:45 on a Saturday. I was coming from Hyannis. I was working a show with my wife. So we came home, dropped
Nice.
the baby off, and then I rushed out to go make the movie in Kingston, which is probably like from Hyannis to Kingston, like an hour drive total. So I
That's
didn't
it.
really, and I was out, like I said, was on that, helping out with that show for like all day Saturday. So I didn't really get to eat anything. And I didn't want just candy. And I didn't want
Mm,
popcorn. Like that's not really a meal. So I wanted like some protein.
okay, then
So
that
that was my thought process behind it. Like something that's a little more heartier.
context is always important, and that makes a ton of sense. That
But
is totally
even
reasonable move.
even without the context there, I just like beef jerky. It's a nice road trip snack. And I think for
Sure,
that it also works as well. I think
sure,
in the
yeah,
movie theater, try get some jerky next time you're at the movie theater.
yeah, definitely for a road trip too. Of course, it's like,
Mm.
one of the staples.
Was this better than Dune 1, Nick?
Yeah, so you had when I saw that question, I was like, oh, I got to check my score, but you already did it for me, and I
Hmm.
gave the original Dune one, not the original one from like the 80s. I gave
Sure.
this an 88 out of 100. I still feel comfortable about that grade. Maybe I could go up a tick with it, but this was like comfortably better than the original Dune, and not that the first one was bad. It's just like I mean, 88 is a great score, but this was just an amazing build up the whole way through. But did you feel the
Hmm.
same way?
Yeah. So I gave it a 90 first time go. I actually rewatched it this past week in advance of Dune 2, and
Nice.
it still holds up. I think the biggest gripe that I had with it is it's just a lead into this movie. So
Mm,
yeah, it's like you had to wait the whatever it was, 2 or 3 years until this movie came out there. But the 90, I think it holds up. And also, I asked Goo this because he got the advanced screening. So after I finished rewatching Dune, I remember having the same gripe when I watched it initially. They make all this talk about the sand walking in the first one, and they never show it at all. Everyone's just walking normally on the sand. So I
mm,
was like, what's up with that? They made it a point to like show Paul learning about the Fremen sand dance, sand walk, whatever it was. And then I was pleasantly surprised in Dune 2. Like it's all over this movie. So
yeah, it is. It
I'm
is
happy
true.
they brought it back up there.
Interesting that you still had that same gripe. Like I respect that a lot.
Yeah, it's something that didn't age. And I remember thinking, I'm like, I think I had the same issue there.
How about that?
With Dune 2 now out, how does this stack up to other, high fantasy, sci-fi epics like The Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Star Wars, things like that?
So looking at just that list, and it's still like this needs to still be finished. So they
Of
still need to land,
course.
and I think Game of Thrones is a great example of why that's the case.
Mhm.
Um, for me right now, this is trending to be on par with Lord of the Rings, which for me is the highest of the bunch.
Yeah.
I go Lord of the Rings, Thrones, Star Wars, like the original Star Wars,
Mhm.
and then Harry Potter. And I know with Thrones, like it didn't land the plane, but the original Star Wars is like I love it, but it ain't perfect. And also, I feel weird about putting like I'd feel weird about putting Thrones and Star Wars ahead of Dune when Dune is so good, and Dune has heavy influences on both of those properties. So,
Right,
and
right,
then
right.
Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, the same kind of deal. So
Hmm.
I get it. Like they're all their own thing, and they're all really impressive and cool, and I love them all. And there's no such thing as original thought anymore, and whatever. But still, like
Makes me wonder if there ever was.
I just want to point those things out. Yeah, for real. I just want to point all that out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I got Game of Thrones at the top for me, just because like I agree the ending wasn't what I wanted it to be, but people say the same thing about Sopranos, and
Sure.
the ride and the world building and just getting immersed into that, like, again, the world or the culture of Game of Thrones. I was fully obsessed with. I was about as close as I was to like picking up like a large anthology series like that and actually starting to read the books,
Wow.
because I was so into it. But I never got there. But I was close, so I think that deserves some credit. But
I've heard it is like Tolkien is a lot, but I've heard that Thrones is
it's like
very
dense, yeah,
yeah,
very dense reading there.
extremely dense.
And I, this is really just kind of pick your poison here, because these are all great high fantasy like epics
Yeah,
there. Whether it's the first Star Wars trilogy, Lord of the Rings, or Dune is trending that way, but I think the first Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, I think any one of those three could be the top, and Dune is trending that way.
yeah,
Depending on what happens with the trilogy there. Harry Potter is great, a special place near and dear in my heart, but again, it's not really a trilogy like the other movies are. This plays out over 7 or 8 movies.
oh, that's why.
Um,
Okay,
you
I was
know,
curious.
yeah, but I love, but it's also like more childish. Everything else has higher stakes. It feels like obviously Harry Potter at the end, but you got to go through those lean child years at first, and
Hmm.
then the other two trilogies from Star Wars,
Yeah, I mean that's yeah.
they don't really stack up.
No, they're not. They're not on the same level as the rest of this. No way. Not definitely not. Anyways,
Um, Rank your top 5 Denis Villeneuve
I am
movies.
definitely the worst person to be talking about this because I've only seen 4, and one of them isn't Sicario, so
Okay.
that's a sin. I need to see that. I know. So with that being the case, maybe a little recency bias, but I put Dune 2 at number 1, then Prisoners,
Wow, that's big
then
for you.
then Dune. Yeah, I know there might be recency bias,
Yeah.
but and then Blade Runner 2049. Those are the only 4 that I've seen. I'm sure if I think Sicario will be the one I see, and I'm sure it'll get right into this group. But yes, you know how much I love Prisoners, and but Dune 2 was just it's just blown away. But anyways, where about you?
Yeah, Dune 2 comes in 3. It's kind of tough. I like Sicario and Prisoners more.
Hmm.
Barely more, but I think Sicario I can go back and rewatch it anytime. It's like such a good movie for being so heavy. Prisoners, again, very heavy. Can't really
Amazing.
watch it all that much, but great performances inside and out. Dune 2 is like right up there for me. I loved Arrival. If you got like a snowy or rainy weekend coming up with the misses, going through Arrival, Enemy, and Sicario, that would be like a nice little weekend there. Because
Okay.
Enemy is really good too. I think I might have recommended that before with Jake Gyllenhaal. He
Hmm.
has someone that he finds out who looks exactly like him, and then they kind of like trade places, and then
Oh yeah, that rings a bell
all
now.
all insanity kind of breaks loose there.
Hmm.
And then I like Blade Runner 2049, but it's at the bottom of the list there.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I got to see these 3. I didn't know. I remember you bringing up Enemy now after you went through some of that detail. But every
And
time I've heard Sicario,
Arrival's great too. The wife watched Arrival on her own, and I had seen it previously, and she was completely hooked on that too. So that's another really good one.
okay, nice. Yeah, I mean, it seems like this guy's one of the best, right? And that only
Hmm.
makes me question more. Why the fuck was this a debate? Like Dune is like this legendary story, and I know they botched it. In the 80s, but also that was in the 80s. Cinema's
Hmm.
come a long way, like for various reasons. Fine, you want to wait after the first Dune, but after once you're like, oh, we're doing the second one, like, how are you not doing the third right away off the rip?
Yeah, no, I like maybe it's just like they don't want to be rushed or he doesn't want to be rushed, like
That's fair.
with getting, turning stuff out for the sake of, the bottom line, getting maximizing your dollars and stuff, but
That's very true. Because if he didn't want to keep going, then you can't do it because he's like such an important part in all this.
and from what I understand, this has been like a passion project for Denis Villeneuve there. The some of the reviews that I listened to were talking about how he's been like storyboarding Dune Part 1 and Part 2 for like 10 years, just something that like what he would do if he were to be director, and then
Damn.
has taken this on. So, that's always nice to hear from a creator.
Yeah.
When especially when it's like your preferred IP, like, all right, this guy cares as much as I do about it.
Yeah. That's some
So
serious
that's cool stuff.
manifestation. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
cool.
right. Yeah, but right now, I mean, again, we're talking those five movies. The top five Denis Villeneuve movies, and then Enemy and Blade Runner 2049. I mean, you're talking about like a Pedro Martinez late 90s, early 2000s type of run.
Mhm.
Like that's high heat he's throwing.
Yeah, 100%. I saw at some point along the way, like his all the Rotten Tomato scores came out, like were like shared, like of all his movies, and it might have been Prisoners. There's one of them that was on my list. It must have been Prisoners. That was like in the 70s or like high 60s, and I was like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
first of all, that's wrong. Second of all, that's where like if that's his worst movie, then like, what am I doing? I need to see all this other shit. Because yeah, but anyways,
Yeah, and it's interesting because this movie, like, you talk about like the must see directors, when they put a movie out, you got to go out and see it in the first couple weekends. He's one of them. Christopher Nolan's obviously the other one, and it would have been interesting because Dune 2 is supposed to come out in November, which would have lined it up for this year's Oscars, which I think is happening this week. Or next week or this Sunday or
mm,
whatever you want to call it. So it would have been interesting to see this up against Oppenheimer and who would have won out in some of these cinematographies, some of these best supporting actors, best picture, best director.
huh?
So that would have been interesting to see. But it's also cool in the sense that each of them kind of get their moment. And I think they've gone back and forth and kind of like patted each other on the back, saying, "Oh, I loved Oppenheimer. Oh, I love Dune too." And they can kind of like build each other up,
I
which is
wonder.
fine.
I wonder if that was deliberate, not on Villeneuve's part, but just
A
like the
studio,
studio.
maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I, I'm not saying this is what should happen, but if I was to bet on it, I would bet that like all the anytime they're going head to head, like 9 times out of 10, the nod's going to go to Oppenheimer because this is sci-fi, and I know that sci-fi gets more respect than it used to, but it still doesn't get respected in the same way as an Oppenheimer type movie would.
Yeah, we'll never know, I guess. I guess we'll never
Unfortunately.
know. What was the most rewatchable scene?
I mean, Paul versus Fade Rotha was. I am. I feel like I'm overly nitpicky about a few things in like when it comes to like entertainment. One of them is how Gambit is portrayed and written, whether it's in comics or in film or anything like that. The other is like one-on-one fights. I feel like I have a tendency to be overly underwhelmed, like more so than most.
Given your martial arts experience.
Of course,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
But I just certain things just don't do it for me as much, and I don't know why. I'm not saying it's reasonable. I just know that about myself. But like that's why the stuff from Shang-Chi really knocked my socks off. Then this fight with Paul and Fade Rotha, I was like, oh, like okay, they're gonna do this. All right, here we go. How's this gonna look? And then it was like, whoa, that was some crazy shit. That whole fight sequence was outstanding. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time.
Yeah, and I think the buildup of that moment, to not even just the action behind it, but knowing that you have Fade Rotha kind of lurking around the outside of the circle, and he's like eyeing up Paul from the moment that he steps into the I guess congregation room, meeting room, or whatever, and they're almost like mirror opposites of each other. The Bene Gesserit were both kind of eyeing them to be the next for the throne. They're both kind of young up and comers trying to make a name for themselves. One represents kind of passion and life, and the other one kind of represents like pain and masochism and everything. So they're kind of like a yin and yang to each other. And even just like in the how they're represented, right? The black and white of Fade Rotha, and then there's more color and like
Life.
detail, I
Yeah.
guess, life. Yeah, that in Paul there, whether it's with his eyes or like the hair and everything else to it. So I thought they were that was a really well, I guess, built up fight scene to that and everything around it. You knew the Emperor was gonna call on Fade Rother to be his champion.
100%. And even though you know that's going to happen, and you know, like you have a pretty good idea of where this fight's going to go, like at least the final result. I still like I like even knowing that I was still very much impressed, because I think that's an easy thing that can get taken away from good hand to hand fights. Like you know who's going to win, but
Hmm.
like, an easy way to make it better is when you don't know, like when it's like the person you don't expect to win. But in this case, like the person you expect to win does, and I was loving every second of it.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about that this movie kind of touches on, and we could talk about this maybe at a different point in time, but whether you should be rooting for Paul or not. He's not really the hero, and like when he accepts that finally accepts the Messiah role, which I think is one of probably the standout moment for me in the movie,
Mm,
when he's at that the Southern Fundamentalist Church of the Freemen there, and he goes and finally wins them over. He just finds out that he is part Harkonnen through his mother, and he's like, I'm gonna channel the Harkonnen side of this here. And just kind of easy. I'm gonna go full Harkonnen. And this is like his heel turn almost. That he's going evil and kind of playing into that role a little bit more. And it's all just kind of an act, and he does it so well. And then he does, his close-up magic tricks and starts like reading people's minds and shit. And immediately wins everyone over there. But to see that moment, one from a character standpoint of Paul Atreides, but also from the Timothée Chalamet standpoint that we were just
yeah,
talking about before we started recording. Of like, all right, I can accept him as the young prince who is promised and the up and comer in Dune Part One. I can see him as the reluctant leader who is seeking out revenge that happens at the end of Dune One and at the start of Dune Part Two. But I don't know if I could really see him as a leader of men just because of his stature. I mean, the guy is 5'7". He looks very young. He's got a pretty boy face. So I was waiting if that was going to hit for me and whether I was going to be like, I don't buy it. But that moment came and you completely buy it. You're completely won over by him. And I'm ready to join the cult. I'm ready to go to war with him.
yeah. I agree with a lot of what you said, and it kind of like dips into some of what I have for what will age the best. So I'll save that for later. But on the note of the Messiah role specifically, any speech from Paul, like as he starts getting going, as he like finds his voice and learns to speak from his chest, it's just I'm blown away by how impactful it was for me, because I feel pretty similarly about Timothée Chalamet. At least I did. That has changed. But one of the other things too that I don't think falls under speech, but still like kind of along those lines, when he chirped the Benny Gesserit on
Sure.
Mordecai,
Using the voice. Yeah.
using the voice, I was like, oh fuck, like
You're
that
an
was
abomination.
that was he did an awesome job. That it's just great stuff across the board from Timothée Chalamet. But yes, his speeches in that Messiah, like taking on that he did an outstanding job.
Yeah, from the moment that he drinks the water of life, right?
Yeah,
That's when he becomes like it looks like looks a little taller, like they start shooting him from below looking up a little bit more to give him that kind of like hero look. So, but again, he's like so tiny and small, but the way that the camera work, it makes him look a little bit bigger. Everything that he says from that point forward is direct. He's not kind of wishy-washy. He's very assertive and knows what he wants and knows how to get it done, and he's not afraid of any repercussions that come of it, because he's
yeah.
just fully accepting it now, which again, that's what you want out of a leader, someone who, right or wrong, is 10 toes down into what they're doing.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of stunned by and large by that. I just didn't know that Timothée Chalamet had that level of that like character in his like he had it in him.
Yeah. He's got a couple of tools in the toolkit there that he threw
Apparently,
out there. You mentioned the Paul versus Fade Rotha fight, but I think my favorite moment with Fade Rotha was his introduction What
Mm.
on his birthday there, just that whole scene, you get monochrome, black and white, which is such a cool way to depict the Harkonnen homeland. And you get these like ink blot fireworks that pop up there, over
Yeah.
top, and it looks so cool. But you see how crazy it is. You get that memeable scene with him sticking his tongue out and testing the sharpness of the blade before he just like without thought just guts two women. Like
Yeah.
very quickly. He's like, let me try out this blade, bop, 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 and then like
Mhm.
slices another girl's throat. And he's got these like concubines that he keeps too that like feed off of other Harkonnen body parts, which was I thought was kind of an interesting note there.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
that whole scene was just very freaky. And then the fight, which I was a little confused about, but I liked it. The gladiator battle.
Mhm.
So it's like, is this just for his birthday celebration? This is kind of like an unanswerable question, but like, is it just for his birthday celebration, or do they all get together and just watch him beat up drunkenly drugged up prisoners all the time while he
Mm.
has a shield on?
Yeah, that's definitely an unanswerable one, but I mean, well, maybe if we read the books, we would know, but
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's normally a gladiator type situation, and this is supposed to be like a foul, fake. Sorry, I gotta stop doing the French stuff. A fake
Yeah, yeah.
gladiator stuff, gladiator
Hmm.
fight, gotta.
It could be. It could have been that there, but I was a little thrown off. I was like, "Oh, I wonder what this usually is with him. Like, or is it just like the birthday celebration?
Hmm.
And these are a couple bones getting thrown his way. And then, the cool thing is you get Baron Harkonnen, not drugging one of them, and it was one of the last Atreides lines there. So he gets a little bit of a fight, just to kind of test his mettle and see what he's made of. And Fade Wrather answers the call, and then he ends up getting to be the governor, I guess, of Arrakis.
Hmm.
Um, how about the first spiced harvest raid?
Oh yeah, yeah,
That was
yeah,
like the first real fight scene that you see, and it was after the Harkonnen soldiers went to seek out Jessica and Paul and everyone else there, and they kind of have that little like the scene with the jetpack and stuff. I thought that was really cool with the Harkonnens. But right after that, when that's the first raid where you have Paul and Chani using the rocket launcher and they're hiding underneath the legs of the
yeah.
spice machine, the spice harvester. Very, very cool stuff and how they time it out. And then you see some cool interaction between, Paul and Chani and that kind of relationship building, which is, you get for probably the first half, maybe the first third of the movie.
Yeah, I'm just now thinking about like the jetpacks because I never like it's just
Jetpacks were so cool because
they
it was
were
like dead silent. The whole theater goes silent at that point. So,
yeah.
you're getting like overloaded with Hans Zimmer scores like left and right. And then all of a sudden you get silence and they just kind of float up like very smoothly to the top of the rocks.
Yeah, that wasn't that. Again, I don't know if like that's a book or a villain away choice, but that was some pretty cool shit. Like it just felt like they just turned off the gravity for that, so it was
Hmm.
just interesting choice.
But the reality is, like, this whole movie, I feel like is very rewatchable to me. Much like you could say about Empire Strikes Back or The Two Towers or The Dark Knight. Like, this is the movie that I think everyone's returning to more so than the first one, just because of it's a complete movie.
Yeah, I do feel I do agree with that by and large, but the Two Towers note is I saw somebody tweet, I think it was tweeting about it. Somebody was saying how like it doesn't get as much love as the first one and the third one from Lord of the Rings. And I was like, I feel like the average person likes like the average like person who liked Lord of the Rings movies, not like loved it or whatever, like liked it. The second one's their favorite one.
Yeah, I thought why the Return of the King got so much love at the Oscars was because the overall assumption that they got robbed out of the Two Towers. The Two Towers was the better film, but it was more like an award for the entire body of work or like a makeup.
And that may be it. I love 3. I'm not saying 2 is my favorite necessarily. I think 1 gets a ton of disrespect now, like, as I've rewatched it a few times over the last
Hmm.
few years. But yeah, it's just I just needed to bring that up because I was like, I'm not crazy, right? Like, again, not saying 2 is my favorite, but
Yeah. Hmm.
that most people say that it is their favorite.
Yeah, I think most people would say that it's, maybe the best of the three. Maybe less than the personal favorite, but just like objectively. But I don't know. To each their own.
I'm
Um,
torn by that.
what will age the best from this movie?
I think the final fight scene ages well. We've already talked about that a ton. I don't know how much Stellan Skarsgård has played the villain over the years, but I need more of it. And if I've missed out on some of it, then I need to be informed of where I haven't been looking, because
Mm-hmm.
he's so good. I mean, in the first one he was good, in this one I was just like, God, he's like this revolting, like bulbous figure that's like floating through the air, and every part of me wants to like kind of like it's just such a huge turnoff for me. Like I just don't want to care about that character, but he's so fucking good
Mm-hmm.
at being an asshole.
But I would have thought I thought he had a bigger role in the first one. I thought he was great, and I thought the Harkonnens again are just as a whole, as a family unit, are just a great villain to go up against.
Yes,
But I thought he was kind of neutralized here, and you see more of Fade Rotha, you see
sure.
more of a Beast Rabin here. But in the first one, he has this like looming presence, and because almost like Thanos in the sense where he doesn't really say a lot, you don't really see him a whole lot, but you feel that big presence that he has. And he's got these really creepy scenes, like his head coming out of what looks like oil and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I thought he was more imposing in the first one than the second one. But
Fair,
yeah, he's
sure.
great in both. Great in both
Yeah,
though.
I just need more of him as the bad guy. Because
Mm,
he can play. I know, like in the scheme of all this, I guess the Harkonnens, they played their role, but they
yeah.
they were pretty big. They were big bads in that first movie, and he can do that again. And then I alluded to this already, but like, what's going to age the best from this movie? My view of Timothée Chalamet. Just
Hmm.
I was watching this, and I'm like, there was a point in the movie where I was like, I'm enjoying this, but I'm not a Chalamet guy, and I know this character is well written, and I know it's like he's doing a good job, but it's not like there's something that's missing for me. I just don't like. Maybe I was like, I don't think I don't know if it's going to get there, like to that
Hmm.
full level for me. It's almost as if I said that and then everything fucking changed, because it was just like you have this steady build with this character, and then he takes off in like the third act, and I'm still blown away, because we've seen, character development, and like that's impressive over the years in various movies, but I I feel like I've never been so impressed by the development of one main character in an individual movie as I was this one.
There's a lot of. I agree. He grows a lot through there, and you can see. This was interesting because Denis Villeneuve was saying that he doesn't really like dialogue in movies, and that's what ruins movies. I think he was saying that in like an interview, kind of
Yeah,
press junket situation. And it's great. What's great about Blade Runner 2049 and even Arrival, this movie, is that you get so much is said through facial expressions and close-ups of the actors, and that you kind of see, like with Chani, for instance, like her being physically torn over what's happening of to Paul as being this fake messiah, right? And his reluctance to accept it, but he ends up doing it, and you can see how hurt she is because she loves him, but she also knows that this is like everything that she stands against, and you can
right.
kind of really see that on her face. I think the same could be said for Chalamet, whether he's talking to his mother or how he's kind of working the entire Freeman to get on his side and slowly win them over. I think you see a lot of that in just like the physical acting of it, which I think goes a long way.
Yeah, I think there's something to, because when he said that, I was like, well, wait, what do you mean by that? But what I
Just listen to Madam Web. I mean,
yeah, but then as you go and watch this, and as you're breaking it down, it's like, well, if you just utilize the dialogue only when you absolutely have to utilize it, then it's going to be as effective as it possibly can be. And I think this movie, while there's a fair amount of dialogue in it, of course, like it's like what you said, like you have that late scene where you have Florence Pugh, Timothy Chalamet, and,
yeah,
and Zendaya standing at the end, and it's just like
and
you fucked up, dude, and like this is weird, and like now it's uncomfortable. Like so much is there in that moment but is it little said or nothing said? I think it's nothing is said in that moment, right?
Very little, and it's like, this is kind of like basic stuff. But Chani is standing behind Paul, and then Princess Irulan is standing in front of him, representing the future. She's representing the past and what he's moving on to. So you get all that there. Again, you can see it all. It's very well done. And again, for an idiot like myself to be able to pick up on that and still kind of like add into that moment, that subtle subtext, again, without really saying anything, it speaks volumes.
Yeah, this is like, as you and I are talking about it more and more, this feels like one of those kind of movies that like film classes will utilize.
I can see that. Yeah, for sure.
There's just so much. There's so much that's well done about it.
Well, yeah, and on that note, I think the cinematography, Greg Fraser was the director of cinematography there. He's done the Batman. He's done a couple of other things,
Oh,
Dune Part
jeez.
1. So I mean, the scale of everything is great. I mean, to be able to take in the sheer size of the sandworms in relation to the humans, to be able to show that on a great, on an awesome level. Same thing with the ships and the machinery in relation to the people. And you get these like long scenes that kind of like establish the setting, these establishing shots. It's amazing. Everything works out great. The sun, like when you think about that, the 1v1 fight with Fade Ratha and Paul, the sun is setting behind them, so you get the shadow on them at a certain point. So you just have the desert sun kind of illuminating the whole room, and then they're the shadows kind of fighting. Again, very, very great work. So shout out to Greg Fraser, and then of course the great Hans Zimmer on the score. All those things make up and add to the conversation without having dialogue once again. So
Yeah,
all those things kind of go a long way. And when you have someone as great as Hans Zimmer and Greg Fraser who can help build that up there, then you don't have to have as good of a script.
yeah,
And really, like you said, this pretty simple story. This not much, even though you could everyone has copied Dune, whether that's Star
100%.
Wars, Lord of the Rings, but the Star Wars story is very simple, much like this story is very simple. There's not a lot going on to it. It's family tribes, family political, big family political groups fighting over power and the fallout from that. And then you got a love story, and then some of them the families are actually closer than they think. And then there's betrayal and all. So it's like your typical hero story, but it's just done very well. So yeah, everything you don't really poke at the story too much, or at the simplicity of it, because
Right.
everything else is done so well.
Yeah, and on the and while like anybody who reads Dune, like you said it, Wes, like it they did it first. It's like, well, unfortunately for them, because they're like one of the like in the scheme of all these other movies, like they're one of the last ones to get made. It's like, well, tough. Like
Yeah,
sure, like you can when you're talking about literature, maybe that's different because like you can judge it differently because that was like it came out in the is it the 60s or
I
something like
think
that?
65. I think yeah.
So there you go. We're not like if this was if the great movie like Star Wars, if it was made like and it was well regarded in the 70s, then yeah, okay, then we'd look at it differently and we allow for certain things because it was made then. But now it's like no, it's made now and it's reaching everybody at a different point in time. So it's kind of like tough shit. You got to show up and they have. And you bring up the cinematography and obviously I think that goes without saying 100% you're spot on with everything you said, but then the score too, it's just like it blows my mind just like thinking about like how much of a difference the music on a movie makes. Like when you have Villeneuve saying, "Oh yeah, like I like dialogue doesn't do as much." Like there's so many other things besides the dialogue in just the script in general. But whether you're talking about like score like in a Hans Zimmer style, or if you're talking about just like having like music of the time of that moment in the mix, it's just
Like a Guardians type thing, as like the opposite end of the spectrum, right?
yeah, it's crazy how
Hmm.
much it can elevate that movie because it just make like in different ways. You're like, I'm having a good time. Like this music is like getting me in the right mood.
I'm right there with you. This is one of my favorite twists of the movie, the reveal of Paul and Jessica being Harkonnens.
Yeah,
Did not see that coming. I was like, whoa, shit. All right. Okay. Now we're here for it. Then you get the great line at the end where he's like, now it's my time to kill you, grandfather, or whatever he says, the grandfather, and then he stabs Harkonnen in the neck.
Yeah, actually, and I didn't think about it when I was watching the movie, and that's great. But like again, when we talk about like thrones in Star Wars, like getting
Yeah,
stuff from this, it's like
Luke, I'm your father, right? Like
Luke,
that's
I'm
like
your father, and Jon Snow is a Targaryen.
yeah, the prince who was promised. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Who lost his whole family, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
The Bene Gesserit, I love this group. I remember talking about them in Dune Part One. Is just like a great faction in this, and then as you see more of their political webs that they spin around everyone to kind of make sure that they're in control. Very interesting that it's all kind of women witches who aren't allowed. This is a patriarchal world. It seems like so they're not really allowed in the decision making, but they are pulling all the strings from behind the scenes. So
Mhm.
they are the marionette. What's the guy who holds the
The
marionette?
puppeteer.
The puppeteer. Yeah, of everything there. So I thought that was great. Again, I loved her performance in the first one, but what's her name there? Reverend Mother Moyham, unbelievable, awesome.
She's
And then
great, and when Jessica claps back at her, it was like, oh,
yeah,
she's
yeah.
crazy. Lady Jessica's awesome. Like she's fucking.
Oh, and she goes off her rocker there a little bit in
Oh
this
yeah.
movie too,
Oh yeah.
which is very cool to see. How about I mentioned this, the Harkonnens as a worthy villain. They're all crazy, wild, seemingly representing the Third Reich, kind of a Hitler German army, maybe Russian Soviet influences in there.
Mm.
Very so you can see all that stuff, and that they certainly fit the part. Um, this is some minor stuff. The atomic stockpile that Gurney Harkney found. Very
Mhm.
cool. I would love just to have an atomic stockpile at my will, just like hidden somewhere. That would be cool to have. Good ace in the sleeve there. And then the last thing, the Fremen's guerrilla tactics,
Oh yeah.
unbelievable. They're built up as these great fighters by Duncan Idaho in the first one there, but you don't really see it too much. And this time we really get to see it, and they're like unstoppable, right? And they have the land in their favor. They know the whole terrain. This could be alluded to the guerrilla tactics of the Vietnamese, the Viet Cong, and the Vietnam War, why they were so effective, or the Afghans when the Soviet Russia invaded, or when America invaded in Iraq and Afghanistan, the problems that they gave those huge armed forces, established armed forces of like Russia and the United States, and these small local groups with like next to nothing, by comparison, were able to kind of put up some good numbers against them.
The them popping out of the sand is
Awesome.
so is so cool. Like, and I should have cited that earlier, but I absolutely love that. Yeah.
And just the overall resourcefulness of the Fremen.
Mhm.
I think it's cool they drain all the fluids from the dead bodies there, and like
That's something.
that's pretty gross. But everything about that, taking the or the dead bodies, and then porting that into their sacred pool, sacred river, whatever that is at their home base. Very very resourceful. So I love that. What do you think will age the worst?
uh,
Anything?
Paul accepting his Messiah role.
It's probably not going to turn out too well for him. I mean, he saw the visions, right? So he knows what's happening, but he's doing it anyway. Uh,
Yes.
and this is the interesting thing, because there's the idea of him being the Messiah, but that's all propaganda that Chani recognizes of the Bene Gesserit, so that they can get
Yes.
the desired outcome that they want.
That was
So
great. I loved that. Yeah, that was great.
it's again like you're watching this movie like almost as part of the Fremen, and you want to root for Atreides to rise and to kind of take on that Messiah role. But you also know that this means, again, probably bad stuff for the Fremen, just having another, master ownership over them.
Yeah.
And then clearly a holy war is never good,
Right.
for anyone in the long run. So like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. That was such a like when she said that, I was like that when she called that out though, I was like, it just was like, oh, that makes that scratches and itch just for some reason for me. And I thought that was such a nice little twist, and I'm assuming like that's from the books. It's just such a nice detail in all of this. Like, just really brings it all together. But yeah, so it's I haven't read the books like I've said, but I've just saw stuff right away on Twitter. It's like, yeah, people love Paul now, but
Yeah. Yeah,
oh,
we'll
okay,
see.
okay,
This was like a personal thing, very minor. I was very I had anxiety inducing moments watching Jessica being pregnant in the desert, much like in the first one towards the end. Just did not feel comfortable throughout that whole situation. She's like bashing dudes' heads in with a rock. She's going traversing the desert. She's got a bait. I don't know how much she's eating, like all that kind of stuff. And especially so with the water of life scene with her. When you see that water kind of like mix in with the fetus, it was very off-putting to me. I kind of cringed inside because I'm like, what's happening to this baby?
you guys don't do that too?
Yeah. We do that just with hard alcohol. Let's get some
Hey,
vodka mixing in there for it,
there you go.
But yeah, so all that was
Yeah.
very uneasy. But I do love the idea of not using, I think it's Anya Taylor-Joy, what ends up being Paul's sister. Because I believe in the David Lynch 80s movie, she's born and is a toddler in the second movie, or what's depicted in this part.
Well, yeah, we'll probably see her in the next one, but
Yeah, for sure. But I love the idea of her not being born. One, using that as a time frame device, as I was so lost in our last show that we watched, True Detective Night Country, having Jessica be pregnant throughout. It's like, okay, so we're only a couple months here, 3 more months here, and by the end, she's like about ready to give birth. It feels like,
yeah,
right at the 7, 8, 9 month.
well, she's talking to the baby, which you didn't cite that being a problem, so you're okay with her.
No, I love that. I thought that was great. Because that was a great use to keep her involved and then be able to show the power of the water of life and like just how unhinged Jessica's become, because you could look at it as probably as what it was, as the fetus is gaining all the knowledge that she is gaining from the past lives and everything like that. So now her mind's awakened prematurely, but it could also show like the craziness that Jessica delves into by taking on the water of life, how she's kind of like this crazy witch doctor now. So I think it kind of works both ways, where she's saying, speaking in wheeze, or she wants to know this, and it's just a creepy way to kind of convey, again, being like a witch doctor essentially.
And it's really, again, another thing that's just well done, because like that's a not having been not being a father yet, that is a normal thing for like the mother to talk to the kid in some capacity, right?
Yeah, but not for the kid to talk back, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like the baby wants, like when you want to do something, like want to eat something, like the baby wants this or whatever, like that's, but like you said, she's talking in wheeze, and it's just like, and I get it, you got the other person in you, but it's just like the way they did it, it's just, they took this like normal thing and made it like, this ain't right.
It's a little like unnerving. Yeah. I agree. I thought that was very well done. But this is the What Age the Worst Person version, I should say. This is, I guess, kind of like an unanswerable question, but if you're the Fremen, what better way to honor the dead than to bring Arrakis back to life with all of the water from the past souls?
Yeah, but how the hell are you going to do that?
I don't know. You could create some sort of. They created suits that take the sweat and the water that you produce from your body, then filter it and then make it drinkable. They're a pretty resourceful group. Like, I got to imagine there's an irrigation way that you can set up, because like when Stilgard shows Lady Jessica that, she's like, this is thousands and thousands of gallons of water, and he's like, yeah, it could bring lush life back to Arrakis. And I'm like, isn't that the way to honor to the dead, to honor the living, and vice versa? But I don't know.
I mean, maybe I don't see how they can do that, and B, I think their faith is more powerful than that. So there you go. And look they got their Messiah in the end.
Did they though? Did they?
You sure about that?
Again, minor thing here. Having Florence Pugh and Lea Seydoux cast in similar roles, especially when their like face is kind of shrouded half the time. I'm like, wait, who is seducing Fade Rotha here? And it took me a couple minutes, but they look similar.
Mm-hmm. They do look similar. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I'm having like a moment of like I kind of I would just like not maybe a series of YouTube videos or something where someone just puts Tim Robinson in all these moments where it's like people are excited about this thing, like you're we're happy about Paul like making his
Yeah.
ascension, and then it's like, you sure about that? It's serious, like just maybe it's just a 2-minute video of like clips like that where he just randomly he's inserted into Arrakis and other
but
places along those
but
lines.
it should be like in famous historical moments. So like,
Yes, that too.
something like JFK would be like, just before his Dallas trip, he's like, I can't wait to be in Dallas. And it's like,
Oh
you
my
sure
god.
about that?
You sure about that?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, just a whole series of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I like
Uh,
that. I like where your
anyways,
head's at there.
but Florence Pugh and Leah Sadu, yes, I don't, yeah, that just one's the one that kind of went past me quickly, but yeah.
Can you effectively kiss with no nose tubes in?
You know what? I will try and figure that out for you. I don't know.
Because I was wondering, because they're kind of on, they wear them on the same side, so when they're facing each other, they're kind of each going opposite ways, right? But it's got to get in the way when you're kissing.
I think it's only when you start using the tongue, but I could be wrong.
It could be. I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe
It's
there's
weird.
some sort of sand kissing that I don't know about.
Oh, there you go.
Who had the best performance by a side character?
There's a lot of good ones in here.
This whole
I
movie's like filled with great side. It's
Yeah.
tough.
I know you said Baron Harkonnen, just in general, the Harkonnens that weren't named Feyd-Rautha weren't utilized as much, but I still thought like his slugging percentage was outstanding.
Sure.
He just didn't get a whole lot of at bats. It's kind of like Matt Stairs, I guess is the best way to put it.
Oh, there we go. I
Um,
like that. He's another hefty guy.
yep, Stilgar was obviously awesome.
Hmm.
Some may say he's also part of the problem, but he's great
But
either way.
he offered like the comedic relief in this with how much he bought into the Lisan Al Gaib.
Yeah,
It was great. Everything that Paul did, he's like, it was prophesized this. He's doing, and he just how much he bought in. But I think there was a little bit of a character shift between him and Beast Raban there, between the first movies and the second one, where in the first one, Stilgar seems like very strong, maybe like has a quiet confidence, kind of stoic, and you don't really see too much of him, and skeptical. And this one, he's like more outspoken and like not braggadocious, but like extroverted. He's more animated. He's a little
yeah,
bit more humorous, which didn't have a problem either way with him, but it just seemed like that was a big shift. In the same way with Beast Raban, where he seemed really formidable in the first one, and in part two, you find out he's kind of like a child.
yeah. It was a tough go for Beast Raban for sure. With Stilgar, I mean, the biggest thing for me is like I just love Javier Bardem. Like just
Yeah,
I haven't seen everything he's in, but anything I've seen him in, I've enjoyed his performance. I think he does an amazing job. Lady
agreed.
Jessica was a great side character as well. We already
Hmm.
talked about all her wildness. And I know we've talked about it a ton, but Feyd-Rautha, he's the number one for sure. I mean, he was just everything he did is awesome, and he's still not like as much as he's at center stage, he's not like getting the same kind of screen time as Zendaya or as Timothee Chalamet necessarily.
Yeah, I thought the Austin Butler did a great job.
There you
He
go.
might be like again like the biggest takeaway from it. Of the side characters, but again, you mentioned Stilgar, I thought Lady Jessica did a great job. I love Rebecca Ferguson as an actress. And seeing you talk about the growth of Paul throughout this movie in a pretty quick fashion. You see that shift in Lady Jessica. I mean, the moment that she becomes the Reverend Mother of the Freeman, uh, she's no longer really Paul's mother.
Yeah, no,
And I think that's even referenced by a couple people. Like
yeah,
you're losing your mother or
yeah.
something,
He's
something to
about to
that
lose his mother.
effect.
But yeah, go easy on him. Yeah, all that
Y-
stuff.
Yeah, but to see her go and then to see how she is really evil, right? She says something along the lines of like, "Let me go. We must attack the weakest first, so to get the true
Yeah,
believers, and then you work your way down to the south to the fundamentalists, and then you can convince them." So she's really pretty maniacal and pathological in her efforts. And you start to see that kind of rub off a little bit, or Paul becomes more open to that idea and accepting of that idea as the movie unfolds.
You know, you're bringing up the point of how like he's about to lose his mother is really interesting because I thought that I only took it in the literal sense of like she's about to die because that drink's supposed to be poisonous and everything like
Right.
that. But it is very much in that moment meant in the literal sense. But I'm sure this was like a specific detail from the book that's like, no, 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 no. He's like, no matter what happens, even if
She's
she
never
survives,
going to be the same.
yeah,
Yeah.
that ain't his mom no more. 'Cause she's taken on like all the other Reverend mothers, like all the knowledge that they have
Mm-hmm.
from the past. So how can you be the same person? So yeah, that's an interesting. I didn't think about it like that. But yeah, she was great. She's number two to Fade Rotha, but like a really strong number two.
Mm-hmm. And I love Gurney Halleck. Like getting Josh Brolin back in the mix. I think that was great. I think his um, once he appears back into Paul's life, you can see him become more accepting. He's reminded of the Atreides family a little bit more. Gurney kind of pushes him to kind of accept that leadership role and kind of take it on and not like push against it so much. So
Right.
everything kind of accelerates when Gurney shows back up. And again, I love seeing like the hard ass, but who really has a heart of gold. And like
Hmm.
that's Gurney Halleck, so I thought that was great. Excuse me. And lastly, honorable mention, shout out to the sandworms. Didn't get a whole lot of sandworm action in the first one here, but they are prominently featured. Very cool. I mean, riding the sandworms, very cool stuff.
They got their own fucking buckets.
Yeah, they got their own
Yeah,
buckets. That's true. That's true.
they
But
got their
they're
they got their due.
they're essentially like Uber systems, like Uber pools.
Sure. Yeah,
Maybe like a train. Maybe a train would be a better
they're like
appropriate comparison.
better Sarlacc pits.
There we go. Yeah, yeah, almost like the same thing, Or yeah.
Boba Fett. Boba Fett. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, and then Mother Morham, Reverend Mother Morham, also a
Mm,
big fan of her. But Fade Rotha, I feel like this was the toughest category because there are so
yes,
many great performances. But Fade Rotha gets it. Who lost the movie?
the Harkonnens.
But so you say the Harkonnens overall,
Yeah, because
and
they
I
got.
ask because Paul Atreides is a Harkonnen.
This is true. This is true. I guess we'll say shit.
The Bald Boys.
Yeah. I'm trying to like. Well, I guess like aren't Beast and Fade Rotha they're brothers, right?
Yeah, they're brothers, but they're nephews of Baron Harkonnen.
Right.
I don't think they
So
were sons. Yeah.
right. So we'll just the brothers Harkonnen, like whatever, like that line, like they
Okay.
lose. How's that? That's a
Yeah,
lot
that's
for
true. That lines off. Yeah, I mean, Beast Rabban was my big loser of this, just from the standpoint of what I said, looking so formidable in the first one, and then really being exposed as like a child, petulant,
Yeah, I mean,
tantrum thrower.
he has the tantrums. He gets worked by Josh Brolin. It's payback, obviously, for what happened before. But as you're saying all this, I just remembered, like, he saw Paul. Like, I know he didn't
And he
know.
ran back scared. Yeah.
I don't think he knew it was Paul. He just knew it was like, this is the figure. But, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he ran back here. Like, didn't even try to put up
Yep.
a fight. Whereas, like, I know Fade Rotha knew who he was fighting in that moment and everything, but I think Fade Rotha would have tried to at least put up a fight with that with
Yeah,
Paul in that
he
moment.
seems more willing to seize the moment than Beast Raban,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. Seems like
Um,
yeah, Beast is probably like the older sibling who like had things always kind of work out for him, but then like the second he hits like real adversity, it's like, oh, like he's like that. He's the kid. No, this is what he is. He's the kid who like in eighth grade was like 6 foot before everybody else was.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then he
yeah.
gets to high school and then he doesn't grow a fucking inch. And then it's like, oh, I used to be the beast. And now I'm just like, now I got to face real
Mhm.
adversity. I'm still 6 feet tall. Like, what the fuck?
Born on third base, kid thinks he hit a triple, right?
Yep.
Chani's another big loser. Although I thought Zendaya's performance was great,
Yep.
although she's like kind of getting typecast a little bit in these roles where she's like plays kind of a skeptic hard ass to begin with,
Uh,
who is really kind of a softie on the inside, and she's like quirky but cute.
hmm.
I'm seeing that was kind of her role in Euphoria. It was definitely her role in the Spider-Man trilogies. Um, so it's kind of interesting. She's really just playing herself. You could probably say the same to a lesser extent of Timothée Chalamet, but it works. Again, you get all that physical emotion from her, the physical acting of being able to show her confliction between being in love with Paul Atreides, but knowing that he's going down the wrong path, and all of that stuff. So she does a great job of it. But I couldn't help but thinking that this is just Zendaya in the movie.
I can see the thread between this and her MJ. I
Mm-hmm.
can't see it in the same way with what is it? What's her character's name in Euphoria again?
Rue.
Rue. Okay, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I can't see it in that. Are we ever gonna get another season of that? By the way,
I don't know. I think
but
that showrunner was in a little bit of hot water.
oh
I don't think
jeez.
I don't think the cast liked him. I think they said they worked him too hard or something like that.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Well, I mean, that was a wild show, so that's actually not
It's
stunning.
true. Yeah.
But anyways, so like I can't see that thread with her in this one necessarily, but I do think that's a fair claim that like she lost the movie. Although you could also argue that well, no, she could end up being the big winner next go around because
She could, but we still got to wait for that to unfold. I can certainly see her coming back and then being, the Maib or the Lisan Al Gaib
mm,
for the Fremen. You know,
or maybe she's not. I don't know if she's in the mix. Like I'm very, I we neither of us know like
I
Dune
can
lore.
with how it ended with her looking back and it's like it's clear that she's going on her own path. I can't imagine that she would not be involved. Her character in the third one.
We'll see. You
Yeah,
sure about that?
yeah, I'm not sure, but that's just how I'm feeling right now. That's
Mm.
reading the tea leaves. I'm trying to.
Mm.
Who won the movie, Nick?
I mean, it's either Timothy Chalamet or Denis Villeneuve. Take your pick. They both did an outstanding job.
Hmm.
Um, and like, because I think Chalamet was already pretty well respected, and I'm not saying Villeneuve wasn't, but I get the feeling now that if he like whatever next big ass budget thing he wants to do is just going to be like a blank check, like because
It
of
could
this.
be, yeah, yeah,
Like,
absolutely,
because like as much as again like you know the he still had the book that he was working off of like so many like there's so many times that like the best movies oftentimes are based off of books whether they be comics or
for
actual
sure,
or prose but like I just think whatever like to get this which is like a what it's in the 60s so like a 60-year-old story in an era where like people you can't have blockbusters outside of the MCU you go and do this in this moment I just think that he's set himself up very nicely for his at least his next movie, if not his next couple.
for sure. Yeah, it's Timothy Chalamet for me, and then also
Mhm.
just movie theaters. I think between this and then you had Barbenheimer over the summer. I don't know what you saw in your trailers, but I saw this trailer for the Kevin Costner like American Western, like a epic that's going to be released. I think like a month apart. It's like a 3-part saga, and they're all going to be released in theaters. Again, like maybe like 1 month apart from one another,
Huh?
which I
Is
thought
it?
was really interesting. But it kind of has like a Yellowstone, like
I was gonna
again, like
say that. Yeah.
early American. As everything is kind of forming time. Frontier. That's the word I was looking for. American frontier.
Gotcha. Okay.
The trailer looks great. Again, it has like a Dances with Wolves type of vibe, and that's like right up Kevin Costner's alley. But my thought was, what a great way to combat streaming. And if you're trying to increase people to go to the movie theaters and create more movie going experiences, you have a big American frontier epic that plays out in real time, essentially over like a 3-month period as you're watching it. That keeps you kind of coming back instead of being like, oh, I can binge all of this on Paramount Plus or Netflix or something like that. I think that's an interesting way to try to combat staying at home on your couch.
Yeah, I didn't.
Creative. It's creative in my opinion.
I missed that. I don't know if I feel like I saw the trailer, but I missed that detail. I think
I think it
that's
was during they might have premiered it during the Super Bowl, but I didn't catch it during then.
gotcha. Well, it's an interesting approach. I mean, it's like it's almost like they're trying, like you said, like trying to like you said, combating streaming services. It's almost in a way like a habit forming type of experience. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I hope that's the case. And then like everything that I've seen on social media about people's excitement for this movie, going back and seeing it twice, people who didn't really look like sci-fi fans who are like, I got my tickets for it. You know, you see this guy riding a scooter that's dressed as a sandworm. So he's
Yeah.
like Paul Atreides, like kind of going through the scooter through the movie theater. Like very cool stuff. I like that. So that's a good sign for movie theaters.
Yeah, and on that note too, I know when we went to see it, so at the one that we tend to go to, because we usually go to Apple, not so much Chunky's. That's like just because it can get a little chaotic there.
A little
But
chunky, yeah.
uh, um, but at this theater in Merrimack, I have only seen it packed two times. One was when Barbenheimer was going on, and the other
Mm-hmm.
time was when Mario came out. Mario
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
next level, like crazy. This wasn't I walked into the theater and it was like nobody was there. I was like, "Holy shit! Like, how is nobody here?" Like in the lobby, I
And you
get
said a
in
Friday night?
Friday night. I
Yeah.
get into the theater and then I'm like, "There's a few people in here, okay, but there's not a lot." But as it goes along, more and more people
Mm-hmm.
start to trickle in, and I was like, "Okay, all right." This like so it was a full theater in the end. But it like took a second. So I get the timing. It's 6:40, so kind of in the middle of dinner still, whatever.
Sure.
But to get like a full theater at this place, like I just feel like my theater is more for kids for some reason. So it was just
Mm-hmm.
I adding on to like more people are coming back. Like it's a legitimate date night movie.
There we go. I like that. That's good stuff there. Okay, so Nick gave it a 97. I gave it a 98. That's a CMM aggregate score of 97.5 for
Ooh,
Dune Part 2. So go see it in theaters. Go see it on the biggest screen, IMAX if possible. I didn't get an IMAX ticket. I was disappointed about that, but the timing didn't work out.
mm,
So I just saw it on a regular ass theater, and it was still great. But this is much like Oppenheimer is being billed. See this on the biggest screen you can, and I think you'll appreciate that all the more better. But
agreed.
go see Dune Part 2. And with that, let's go check out to the discharge depot because the train's leaving the station right now.
Choo choo, bitches.
All right, what'd you do this weekend, Nick?
So we had a very nice, relaxed weekend after like a month of just
Yeah, no
not
kidding, right?
never being home. And one of the things I decided to do that I just wanted to bring up because it's timely is that I rewatched The Crow, and
Mm-hmm.
of course we got the pictures of Bill Skarsgård. I forgot that he was taking on this role that they were
I
actually
as well,
doing it.
yeah.
I remember Momoa being rumored in some capacity at one point, but anyways, I was just like,
Okay,
I didn't think I was like, is this going to happen? I don't know. Just obviously, movies has been a lot going
sure.
on in the last few years, and on the note of like the look of this character because it's like I saw people saying this he doesn't like he looks like the kind of character that the Crow would want to beat up, and
Mm,
I feel bad saying this, but I tend to agree. Like it's
interesting.
and I'm not I still want to see this movie. I'm excited to see it, but I'm not like optimistic because in a character where I feel like you're going and misrepresenting him in his look like right away where he's all tatted up and everything like that. He's supposed to look like this like I don't know, like a gangster in some kind of way, like a bad boy, like a punk. It's like that's not what this guy was. Like you talk about stories that like, we're talking about stories like I think the Crow was in the 80s, but stories that have like a similar a simple plot line, like that's all about this one guy who was madly in love with his girl, and then they get targeted, they get taken out, and like he wants payback, and that's it. Like even in the book, the comic, it's more simple than it is in the Brandon Lee movie. Like what happens, like
Mm-hmm.
why that happens. So it's like that's what that's about. And now you're like turning him into this like this punk. I guess I don't know. Like again, I don't want to judge it based on two pictures, but it had there were a lot of reactions to it, and like it feels like if you're getting the main character wrong in such an important way, it's not a good sign.
It's not a good first step. Wasn't too big on the Crow like everyone else. I did love the look. I love the paint. I love the Sting adoption of the Crow look in WCW. But yeah, so I don't have too much of a connection to it. This is something that we want to review. If we want to do like an original versus sequel, be happy to go back
Oh
and
boy.
check that out when the time comes. But yeah, That's too bad. I'm sorry you feel that way.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, tough weekend. But what about
Yeah.
you?
I met up with a couple high school buddies. So it was four of us in high school. We're all really close. Just let out a little fart there.
That's what that
Um,
was. Wow.
but yeah, so we don't really get together all that much. We're all kind of separated. One's in Newport, another's in Warwick, another one's up in Beverly. Two
Beverly.
people got two kids each. Two of them got two kids each, and the other one's getting married. I just had my first. So life's crazy. So
Sure.
we hadn't all been together in like 10 years or so. So it was nice. It was nice getting lunch and getting some drinks down in Providence. And the great thing, this, people at home know this. If you have, again, old high school, old college buddies that you haven't seen, and you wonder, like, is it going to be weird? But you just end up picking right back up where you left off, and like conversation flows, everything's really easy. And it's like you guys like never left. Like that's kind of what it was. So that's always a nice feeling. When you get to do that. So hopefully we do that, a little bit more than every 10 years.
Yeah, that's because I know about it's Newport. You said one of your buddies, right?
Yeah.
Golf with him from time to time.
No, that's a different college buddy.
Oh, college.
The one that lives in Newport is tough because he works in the restaurant business.
Oh,
So his time off is when,
yeah.
Monday, Tuesday,
Yeah.
when we're starting our work week, and that's like the busiest time of his work week is when we're off. So,
Yeah, 100%.
trying to get on the same page on top of kids and everything else is tough.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Never mind. I misremembered. Forget what I was going to say.
No, but it's close. Little Compton, Rhode Island is where we would go.
Oh, gotcha.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
Yeah, I haven't been there in a little while. Anyways, but speaking of like future episodes, though, do you remember what we have next week?
Well, I got it pulled up. We had Avatar: The Last Airbender, but I think
Okay.
we're
We're gonna do Aquaman because it's on HBO Max
I
now.
was just gonna say we can do that. We
Yes.
have two openings until the original sequel of Roadhouse
Oh
on
God.
March 25th. So March 11th and March 18th, we got two openings. Maybe we do Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom, and then a definitive DCEU rankings the following week.
Look at that. Nice and
How's
easy.
that sound, huh?
Love it. And we save money along the way.
There we go. Right now, we get to watch it on HBO Max. Thank you for sending along your updated password, Nick, and we can watch that together.
You're welcome.
But as always, we'll be back. Same bat time, same bat place.